So before I begin, I'd like to try something with you all. I want all of you to please close your eyes and imagine. Imagine you're holding something you can't explain. A grief that sits like a weight in your chest and a silence that feels like it's stuck in your throat. Now please open your eyes. So if you've ever carried grief that sits like a weight in your chest and a silence that feels like it's stuck in your throat, you know how heavy quiet can be. And for a long time, I didn't know what to do with that quiet. So I turned it into a melody, a song, a parable, and without planning, that turned into activism. My name is Ashra Kunwar. I'm a progressive rock singer-songwriter from Nepal and a Ph.D. student studying interdisciplinary ecology at the University of Florida. I love rock and roll, and I study human-wildlife conflict. Now, these two identities may feel far apart, music and science, art and data, but for me, they share the same heartbeat. Also, a quick confession. Sometimes in my Ph.D., I like to sing, because I feel like it's healthier than screaming into my laptop. And in a world that constantly tells us to choose and fit in a box, I tried. I didn't fit. And that's when I realized that sometimes the most avant-garde thing you can do is to refuse the box. Now let me take you all to part of my life journey with me. While I was in my high school, I sadly lost my brother, Abash, who taught me courage long even before I understood that word, simply by the way he used to chase the wind on his stunt bike as a youngest stunter back in his days, young and alive. And in that moment, I didn't just lose him, I lost my balance. I was doing my Bachelor's in Environmental Science first year, and I failed a subject. So the grief of losing my brother that year didn't only just broke my heart, it broke my focus, my confidence that year. But something really strange happened. The same grief that pushed me down also helped me rise back up, relentless. That shift, I returned, I worked hard, and I graduated at the top of my class in my final year of my Bachelor's in Environmental Science degree. And that was the moment I realized that the roar isn't the moment when you win, but the roar is also the moment when you refuse to stay down. So every time I see people failing, I also see them becoming. I see them failing forward. Now, as years passed by, and when I entered into my PhD degree, I got a call from Nepal saying, I lost my father. An army man whose discipline, strength, and belief in me became the foundation that I still stand on. I was in my first semester of my PhD degree in the United States. I was alone, oceans away from home, reading theory and research while my world was falling apart. I thought my life had gone silent, but it hadn't. So something inside of me, that roar, I could feel that energy that turned into the music that I do and the research, and holistically, I named it as art and activism. And that activism didn't only just stay on stage. On their names, I started Kunwar Initiative to help orphan children back at home to turn that grief into something I can give back to the community in my own little ways. And now, when I look into my mother's eye, I realize what resilience truly looks like. The grief that still breathes, the love that still endures, and strength that does not need sound to be loud. So, avant-garde work does not always have to sound like a rebellion. Sometimes it can sound like a refusal to stay silent, refusal to separate feelings from thinking, and refusal to grieve quietly. And where I come from, Nepal, the land of Mount Everest, people still practice this in the rural areas, and something that my late grandmom taught me. What we do is we look into our hands, and in Sanskrit, we say, Karagre Bashate Lakshmi, kara mule saraswati, kara madhyastu brahma, prabhate kara darshanam. Which means whatever we try and choose to do in our lives, could be cooking, cleaning, conservation, medical, nursing, teaching, big or small, anything, we believe in it. Everything matters. It's in our hand. It's here. Such a powerful tool. And taking you all to the communities and landscape that shaped me, Nepal, towards the west side of Nepal, there's a place called Arghakhachi Sandikharka, where people are bound to live with the riks of tigers and leopards. So yes, I study human-wildlife conflict, which means living with big cats. So on paper, this is highly theoretical. We discuss theories like general strain theory, risk perception theory, tolerance-intolerance continuum, stewardship, all those words. But in reality, it is completely different. In the field, people do not talk about statistics. People talk about love, memory, loss. And one day, when I was in the same research area in Arghakhachi Sandikharka in Nepal, interviewing a mother, I sat across from her, and she was holding the edge of her shawl so tightly that her hands were shaking, and through tears she said, "I'm not afraid of the leopard because that's a leopard. I'm afraid because it took my daughter away." And in that moment, I was not listening to a case study. I was listening to a grieving mother who lost her daughter to a leopard, and her decisions were not shaped by scientific facts. Her decisions were shaped by love, memory, loss. And that moment changed everything for me. I realized that people do not act because they understand. People act because they feel. So I began to ask myself a question. What if research could sing? What if knowledge could move people instead of just informing them? Because those couldn't stay into my notebook. It had to travel beyond academia, beyond the field, and into the world. And today I try to bring the same lived experiences into my melody. My first song to share with you all is Abash, is named after my late brother, is born from loss. The song Itihas Timro Mero is born from love that has a meaning to it, and it says, to love the one you love now because tomorrow might never come. The song Standing Now is one, made with numerous artists from around the globe, talks about collective hope during the time of COVID. The song Relentless, which is just released on Spotify, talks about resilience and hope. Why people fear, how they fear, everything began to shape the way that I wrote. And in villages where people are bound to live in close proximity with tigers and leopards, danger is not an abstract. It's felt in the body, it's remembered in silence, and it's lived through everyday life experiences and decisions. So those lived experiences and decisions had to find its way into my melody. So conflict became my rhythm, hope became my chorus, the roar of the tiger became my guitar riff, and the silence of the forest became my pause. And in that moment, I will not be trying to explain what danger means. I will be trying to explain how it feels living with those danger. For instance, I had this recent privilege to talk about my research work at the United Nations headquarters in New York just recently, where I ended up with a very familiar song we all know, which is, "We are the world, we are the children, we are the one to make a brighter day, so let's start giving. There's a choice making, we're saving our own life to make a better day, just you and me." And in that moment, when the song ended, I could feel that shift, that connection. And I saw the same connection again in 2022 in Egypt, while I had this privilege to perform with numerous artists from around the globe right after COVID, a song called Back Together, in multiple different languages, including English, Arabic, Spanish, French, Nepali, and more. None of us on stage knew all the languages, or in the audiences knew all the languages, yet people responded, Some cried, some stood up, and felt that connection. And that was a moment when I realized something extremely powerful, that art can cross borders before explanation ever does. Now let me show you what I mean by that. So on slide, you see 463. So 463 is the number of conflict cases where people have been killed and injured by large mammals in Nepal from the year 2010 to 2014. And roughly, if you spread it out, it's one case in every 4 days. But here's the problem with numbers. They tell your brain how many, but they do not make your heart feel who and why you need to act for that. And that's where art comes in. It gives that number a heartbeat, it makes us care, and that melody can travel faster than policy papers, it can cross borders without passports, and history has shown us that over and over again. From the songs like Blowing in the Wind to We Shall Overcome, from What's Going On to redemption song, music did not just accompany movement, it moves them. And today I try to bring the same energy into my classroom. I teach students not just to think, but also to feel so that they can act beyond their academic deadline and assignment works. So one time when I showed them the music video of Bodhi Briksha, which is the Mother Earth fighting a destructive force, and the message says, hope begins with us. So when the music video ended, I felt the class was not confused, but moved. And that's when one student came to me and said, I understood climate change before, but this music video made me feel at stake, what's urgent, and why we need to act for it. And that was the moment when theory became human for me, that knowledge became a responsibility, and that little piece of art that talks about climate change made me feel that when art and activism comes together, it can be such a powerful tool, and music can change the world. So people often ask me, are you a scientist or a singer? Back at home, people say, how do you do years of Ph.D? Here in the United States, people say, oh, you're in a rock band? My mom says, that's nice, but did you eat breakfast? Well, I say I try to do both, and I'm learning and growing every single day. So here, let me sing to you a little line from Bodhi Briksha. It says, Bodhi Briksha ko khojima tuya maka haraudai bilautu. Bodhi Briksha ko khojima haraudai bilaudai maka harautu. Which means we are the fire, we are the earth, we are the roots. And the lyric says we are fighting a losing battle against Mother Earth's destruction, but a ray of hope that should start or begin from us. So a moment ago, I asked all of you to close your eyes and imagine the weight of the quiet. But remember that quiet does not have to be the end of the story for all of us. That quiet can be where that roar begins. So before we leave this room, please do one small favor. Please put your hands on your chest and feel that that's where your quiet can turn into a roar. So I'll leave you with this question tonight. What roar lives inside each of your stories, and what melody of change do you think the world will hear because of each one of you? Thank you so much.